Everybody wants to have a level 10 marriage and level 10 health and level 10 finances, but very few people have daily rituals and routines that are ensuring they're becoming the level 10 version of themselves. That was my epiphany.
Hal Elrod, author and creator of #1 international bestseller The Miracle Morning, a proven routine to optimize your life and unlock your full potential every day.
These are 6 of the most timeless, proven practices to optimize the human organism. The acronym is SAVERS. The first S is for
Access all of his transformative insights on embracing powerful morning routines and mastering your mind.
when you feel upset over something and you give yourself 5 minutes to feel your emotions fully. After the 5-minute timer goes off and it starts beeping, he said you say 3 very powerful, life-changing words.
What is something everybody believes true, but it's not?
That other people are better than us. The truth about that, and the most important belief for all of us to adopt, is that
While researching for our conversation today, I found this fascinating idea that you talk about that you learned from, I think, from your mentor some time ago, which is what you call the 5-minute rule. That's fascinating for me. So I want to start a conversation on what is this 5-minute rule and how did that change everything for you?
I love this. Yeah, to this day, when I give a speech, I've been teaching this for 25 years. And even though my work and my messages change, this is such an important strategy for living that it's stayed in my work. So I started, at 19, I started selling Cutco cutlery. And I had never been in sales before. I was actually a radio DJ at the time, and decided to leave my dream job to pursue this career in sales because higher upside in income. And on day 2 of training, my 3-day training, my mentor, Jesse, he said, sales is a microcosm for life's adversity. He said, but it's amplified, meaning the average person, he said, occasionally faces rejection. Maybe every once in a while during a job interview, or, you're going to face it, he said, as a salesperson every day, multiple times a day, on the phone, in person, you're going to get rejected all the time. He said the average person occasionally faces failure, maybe once a year when they fail to reach their goals. He said, you're going to fail with your daily goals and then your weekly goals, and then you're going to hit your goal, and then somebody's going to cancel an order. So he said, you need a strategy to quickly move through adversity so it doesn't affect you so much and you can keep moving forward, but without suppressing it and pretending it's okay. And that's what most of us are trained to do, is okay, I don't have time to feel these emotions, so I'm going to suppress them, and then they, cause you turmoil. Or we feel them too much, and then we're like, I'm going to quit this sales job because I can't handle this emotional roller coaster, right? So the 5-minute rule, he said, is the strategy, and it simply states that it's okay to be negative when something goes wrong. It's okay to feel upset, but not for more than 5 minutes, essentially. And the number's arbitrary, but I think it makes sense when you explain it. And it's that he would teach us that when you feel upset over something because a customer rejected you, he said, and you can use this in everyday life, like if you hit traffic and you go, oh, why is this car's going so slow? He said, you set your timer for 5 minutes, and you give yourself 5 minutes to feel your emotions fully. Bitch, moan, complain, cry, vent, punch a wall, express your emotions fully. Don't suppress, but express. And he said, that allows you to process them. And he said, after the 5-minute timer goes off and it starts beeping, he said, you say 3 very powerful, life-changing words. Can't change it. It's an acknowledgement. I can't change what happened 5 minutes ago. So right now I have a really simple choice. I can continue to resist reality and wish it didn't happen and be upset about it, which doesn't serve me nor change anything. Or I can accept reality exactly as it is. I might not be happy about it, but it's far more powerful, profound, and lasting. I'm at peace with it, right? Happiness is an emotion. You can be happy 1 minute, get some bad news, now you're upset, right? We're jostling between these emotional states, versus when you accept reality exactly as it is, without wishing and wanting that something from the past 5 minutes or 5 years ago was different, you're living in a state of peace, right? And looking back now, having read Eckhart Tolle and all this Eastern philosophy, I'm like, oh, he was teaching us some of the deepest spiritual wisdom in a really bite-sized, simple, implementable way. So when I first heard it, I go, well, 5 minutes isn't long enough. I'll still be upset when the timer goes off. And the first few times I was, but after a week of doing this, I remember I set my timer for 5 minutes one day. I was like, I can't believe this woman canceled her order. It was the biggest order I ever had. Oh, I'm so upset. And then what am I going to do? All I can do is get on the phone tomorrow and make more calls. And I picked up the phone and I had 4 minutes and 32 seconds left. And it was the most enlightening moment of my life. I went, wait, What's the point of resisting my reality and wishing that she didn't just call me and cancel her order for 4.5 more minutes? What a waste of my life. I'm going to say can't change it now, 30 seconds in, and I'm going to be completely at peace. And that philosophy, you know, and at first it's counteractive to how we've lived our lives. It's like, well, no, I get upset and I stay upset. But once you start doing it, it's elevating your consciousness to a level of awareness where you're like, oh, I get to choose how long I continue to wish this thing didn't happen. But when I understand that wishing and wanting and resisting reality is futile, why don't I just accept life as it is and move on? And so for me, I applied that later to car accidents and cancer and bankruptcy and on and on and on, like big events in life, by practicing it in traffic and in the small events.
That's so beautiful. And I love that it starts with the idea. And like you said, 5 minutes is arbitrary. It could be 3 minutes for someone, it could be 10 minutes for someone, and that's perfectly okay. But the idea of putting a constraint of time, to say, all right, you can bitch and moan, but let's just do it in a constraint of time. Because constraints, for lack of a better term, increases productivity for anybody that is practicing constraints in anything in life. And, or at least that's my experience of working with people or experiencing in my own personal life, is if I put a constraint to something, it actually allows me to find the most effective and potentially most powerful way to get through a thing, whatever it may be. And so this is kind of a neat trick to kind of go, okay, let's put some constraint on it. Find your own constraint. 5 minutes is a great idea, because like you said, over time, you realize that you don't even need 5 minutes, which brings my attention to the practice of practicing. Is that when you practice the practice, what happens is it becomes a part of you, it becomes a habit. And so while it may start at 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever that is for the person, as you practice it, it becomes less and less and less. It's almost like you built a muscle. And so after a certain period of time, you're like, oh, I don't even have to try, and I don't even have to do that much. It's kind of like automatic for me. And you then in passing said you've done this for big events in life. Tell us more about that.
So a year and a half after I learned the 5-minute rule and I started my Cutco sales career, I was giving a speech at a conference in front of about 40 of my colleagues. And that night I was driving home from the speech, and around 11:30 at night, after we all went out to dinner, and I was driving a new Ford Mustang. I'd bought my first new car 3 weeks prior with my commissions. Like, life was great. I had a girlfriend. I'm living on my own, you know, and that night, the unimaginable happened. A drunk driver got on the freeway going the wrong way, head-on collision. They hit me head-on at 70 miles per hour. My car spun off the drunk driver, airbags exploded, windshield shattered, cars crushed, and I spin off the drunk driver, and the car behind me crashed into my driver's side door at 70 miles per hour. And at 70 miles per hour, I mean, it completely crushed the car. When you look at pictures, it looks like about almost half of a car from the side, because it crushed it into my body. And instantaneously, I broke 11 bones. My femur, the biggest bone in the human body, broke in half. My pelvis was crushed between the center console, broke in 3 places. I broke my arm in half. I shattered my elbow. I severed the nerve in my forearm, shattered my eye socket, on and on and on. And I began losing a lot of blood. And then that night, I was found dead at the scene. When the paramedics and the fire department used the jaws of life to cut me out of the car, it took them an hour to do that, and I'd lost so much blood that my heart stopped. And my heart stopped beating for approximately 6 minutes. I was in a coma for 6 days. They revived me on the helicopter ride to the hospital, and came out of the coma to be told that I had permanent brain damage and that I would never walk again. And at 20 years old, at any age, but at 20, I'm like, this is like, it's like, it's a nightmare, but it's my real life. Like, it's, you're having, it took more than 5 minutes. Let's just say that, right? But I will say that maybe it was 5 days, but it was roughly 5 days that my doctors called my dad in, and they said, we want to give you an update on Hal. Physically, we've installed, I've got metal rods in my leg, my arm, my elbow, plates in my eye. They're like, he's stable. Cause I had flatlined 2 more times in the coma. So it was like, my parents just wanted me to live. Like, at that point, right, it's like, okay, whatever's going to happen after, like, we just want our son to live. Well, the doctors called him in and said, he's stable. He should be with us for a long time. Great. They said, but we're concerned with his mental and emotional state. We actually believe that Hal is in denial or he's delusional, because he's always smiling and laughing and telling us jokes to make us laugh. And they said, frankly, that's not normal. For a 20-year-old young man that's being told he's never going to walk again, he's got permanent brain damage, he's going to have, horrific scarring all over his body from these, the bones and all of that. And they said, we want you to talk to him and find out how he's really feeling. Like, get to the bottom of it. You're his parents. Like, if whoever's closer of you, go talk to him. So my dad comes in, expresses the doctor's concern. And they said, Hal, they say it's normal for you to be angry or sad or scared or depressed, but not jovial as you have been. And they think you're not facing your reality. So he said, how are you really feeling, Hal? Like at night when you have no visitors to talk to, no friends, it's you by yourself thinking of your future and being in a wheelchair the rest of your life. What are you really feeling? And I'm looking at my dad. He's sitting next to me on the hospital bed. I'm in my hospital bed. I've got my arms in a brace. I got metal plate, my eyes bandaged. I mean, I'm like not in good shape, right? It was a couple weeks after the accident. And I really go inside because I'm looking at his face. He's holding back tears and I go, yeah, he's so concerned and maybe the doctors are right. And I just do a little reflection for about 30 to 60 seconds. And I look at my dad and I smile. I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. He said, what do you mean? I said, remember I live my life by the 5-minute rule? And he kind of nodded. And I said, it's been 2 weeks since the car accident. My 5 minutes is up. I said, I can't change that I was in a car accident and that I broke 11 bones. I can't change that I have permanent brain damage. And if the doctors are right and I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, then I won't be able to change that. That'll be my new reality. I said, so I've played out the worst case scenario, which to me is, I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life and I never get to walk again. And I've decided I'll be the happiest, most grateful human being that you've ever seen in a wheelchair because I'm in a wheelchair either way and I can't change it. So I can either be genuinely grateful and happy for every moment that I am alive while I'm in a wheelchair, or I can use that as the excuse why I'm miserable. And I often ask people when I share this, like this particular story, what's your wheelchair, right? Like what's the experience in your life, past, present, or even that you're afraid of for the future, that you have given control over your internal mental and emotional state? Because we've been conditioned, I think, falsely to believe that we always blame someone or something. Well, of course I'm upset. Look at what I lost. Of course I'm angry. Did you hear what she said to me? Versus, oh, I'm resisting the reality of what she said to me, saying it's not fair, I don't deserve it, you shouldn't have said that. And often we're suffering over things that happened when we were children because we're still resisting that reality, wishing it didn't happen, saying it's not fair, versus going, you know what? I can't change what happened. I can't change this other person. But I can choose to be at peace with my life exactly as it is. And then from that place of peace, you have this neutral emotional state where you go, now what emotion do I want to experience? What state would best serve me? And so, the Cutco training is where I learned the 5-minute rule, but where, and then I practiced, I got reps for the 1.5 years leading up to the accident, but it was the accident when it was like, okay, does this apply? Is it universal to anything or everything? And there's not a lot that I could imagine that it could have been worse than waking up from a coma being told I'd never walk again. But I was like, this 5-minute rule applies here too.
Beautiful. And what a fascinating way to present how you can always change your state. What a fascinating story to correlate to the idea that things can happen outside you, but you can still be in control of at least the narrative that you're going to lean into and the narrative that you're going to hold your life as a standard to. As you were going through that experience and as you maybe made that decision, okay, I'm deciding that I'm going to be the most jovial, most grateful person that you will meet on a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Were there moments post that decision as you were in the wheelchair? Because I imagine it must have taken you a few months or a few years to be out of the wheelchair.
3 weeks after the accident, I took my first step. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So 3 weeks. In those 3 weeks, were there moments where you were like, this is stupid, I'm being happy for no reason? Did that happen? And if it happened, what was the path back from that?
It's a great question. I want to give it some thought. Something that I didn't know then that I couldn't put words to is that what we affirm repeatedly becomes our reality. And that for me, meaning what we speak. So for example, now if you affirm something that's not true, that statement does not hold true. If you say, I am a millionaire, you don't all of a sudden become a millionaire, right? Mm-hmm. But if you say, I am, or I will be the happiest, most grateful person in a wheelchair. I am at peace with my life exactly as it is because I'm not going to waste my mental or emotional energy wishing I could change something that's unchangeable. That sounds like a form of self-torture, right? Meaning, so that was my mindset. So I don't, that time in my life's a little fuzzy with the brain damage and stuff. So so I don't recall a specific moment, but I don't think I did have that because I was so genuinely happy. I was never faking it, but it was so genuinely happy that the doctors were like, this can't be real. Like, why would he be happy? He's got broken bones and not going to walk again. But I think that for me, once I made the decision, there was no turning back. I will say, and we can go deeper into the story if you want, but my other life-threatening situation happened more recently, 7 years ago, when I was 37 years old, and I was diagnosed with a rare aggressive form of cancer, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, given a 20 to 30% chance of surviving. And as a father with a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, being told there's a 20 to 30% chance you're going to make it and a 70 to 80% chance you're going to die, was the most difficult, scariest prospect of my life. But the day that I was diagnosed, my wife was distraught. She was thinking of losing her husband. And I said, sweetheart, I know you're scared. I don't blame you. I said, but I want you to know that I've been here before where the doctors told me something, a probability, a likelihood. And I don't believe that any doctor is an expert in any human being. They might be an expert in a disease or right.
In the generality,
yeah. And I said, so from my perspective, there's a 100% chance that I will be among the 20 to 30% of those that survive this cancer. So to me, I'm not looking at the global statistic, because that includes those that give up, those that don't do anything proactive to heal themselves, those that have that are not willing to get outside the box and eat different. And what I said, I'm going to research what every person that's ever beat this cancer did. I'm going to do everything that they did, and then I'm going to go beyond that. I said, so from my perspective, 100% chance I'll be in this camp. And then I started to let fear creep in, because what ended up happening is I went and did chemotherapy, and I felt very sick. And anybody, even if you have the common cold and you're sick, your mindset usually goes right down with it. You're like, oh, you start thinking really negatively, right? And so I start realizing, wait, I'm going to maintain unwavering faith that I can beat this cancer, but I, as a dad, have a responsibility to prepare my affairs in case I don't. And that was such a difficult mind space to be in. Like, because at first, probably the first week, I was like, I'm going to beat this cancer no matter what. I'm going to be, there's a 100% chance. Like, I was all in. Then I go to my chemo and I'm like at home, like, wait, I got to prepare my will. What lessons do I want to teach my kids? Do I want to record videos for, like, what am I going to do if I'm going to die? I have to live like that. So it's this really weird space to be in. And the reason I share that is I said, what you affirm repeatedly becomes your reality. Well, I quickly, and I know we'll talk about the miracle morning today, but part of the miracle morning is affirmations. And I almost immediately, when I caught myself, oh man, I'm in fear. I'm in fear of death right now. And I feel the stress on my body that's causing. It's not productive. It's not healing. And so I pulled out my journal or my computer, I think, and I wrote my first set of affirmations for the cancer. And step one was what I was committed to. So I'm committed to beating cancer and living to be 100 plus years old alongside Ursula and the kids. No matter what, there's no other option. And I read that affirmation and that's one of 3 parts to it, but I read that every day with such conviction and such intention and such commitment that as I affirmed it repeatedly, within a week or two, it became my reality. There was no fear. I didn't entertain it. I didn't indulge it. So I was able to set my affairs up from a place of, I'm committed to beating cancer no matter what, there's no other option, but I'm a dad. So, I have a logistical responsibility to make sure that this stuff's all set up. But it wasn't like, but what if I die? I have to set this up in case I die. It was like, no, I'm not going to die, but I am going to, as a responsible dad, set this stuff up. I got to be very logical about doing the thing. And here's the thing. If I wasn't logical and I was in that fear state, I probably wouldn't have been very effective at thinking through what I needed to do for my kids. So I share that with you, because I don't remember in the car accident going through difficult times, but in the cancer, I had some very dark moments where I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. It was 700 hours of chemotherapy over 7 months. I was sick. I was in the ER with 105-degree fever time and time again. I was at low points. These affirmations were my anchor that whenever I'd feel fear, whenever I'd feel any kind of harmful or unproductive emotional state, I would pull them out and go, I'm committed to beating cancer no matter what. There is no other option. And that became my reality.
Thank you for sharing that. The reason why I asked that question is because I know a lot of people in my community will make a commitment. I make commitments. And then we say, all right, we're going to do this. And this is what we are agreeing to. And this is what, the positive mindset, this is what we are. We have the affirmation, and then life does something, or life happens, if I may. And that's when those decisions get challenged. Those decisions are, let's say, tested, if I may. That commitment is tested. That belief that you have in yourself, in the moment where you are having the belief, you have the belief. And then the challenge comes along and you go, oh crap, do I really believe this? Will I stand for it? Right. What I love is you said, yes, doubt may come, but there are tools that you can utilize, including the Miracle Morning, that would be helpful for you to now go, oh, okay, I'm going to have these affirmations that are contextual to the challenge or the decision that I made, and that will help me anchor back into a state that allows me to live that decision on an everyday basis. So I love that, and I really appreciate sharing that second story with us, which brings us to one of the key reasons why we are here together, which is the Miracle Morning, which is the 6 timeless morning principles that made the Miracle Morning. I'd love for you to explore that with us.
Yeah. So the Miracle Morning, it wasn't a book idea. It was my own desperate attempt to turn my life around in 2008 when the United States economy crashed. And at that time, and I write this in the Miracle Morning, I say why debt was worse than death. And what I mean by that is in 2008, the economy starts crashing, and I'm the eternal optimist. I'm like, I create my own economy. I don't watch the news. I'm not worried. I'm going to figure it right. Well, I learned some hard lessons that no, if your clients can't afford to pay you because their business is suffering from the money doesn't just grow on trees, like it's gone. And so in a 6-month period, I lost over half of my income. I could not pay the mortgage. I couldn't pay the bills. I was living on credit cards. I went from being a debt-free Dave Ramsey student who paid off the cards every month to now I'm accumulating $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month in credit card debt. And in 6 months, I had $52,000 on my personal credit card. My house, I finally had to stop paying the mortgage completely and foreclose on my home, which was so painful. It was my first home I had ever bought a year and a half prior. And I got real depressed. I got real, I applied can't change it, but it's like, well, yeah, I can't change it, but it's getting worse every day. I'm going further in debt. I'm like spiraling downward. I've never quite dealt with this because the car accident, it was like, can't change it. And now I'm going to get better. I'm going to heal. Right. But the financial crisis was like, can't change it. Oh, it just got worse. Well, can't change it. How low am I going to go? How bad is it going to get? Right. And so a Jim Rohn quote to me, the Miracle Morning was co-created by me and Jim. He doesn't know this, and I never got to tell him, unfortunately, but I was on listening to an audio, and Jim Rohn said, your level of success in every area of your life will seldom exceed your level of personal development. And I had probably heard that quote before. Some people listening may have heard that before. And like often when we hear something, especially the more often we hear it, the more numb to it we become, right? And for some reason, thank God, that morning I went, wait a minute. If my level of success, which on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's fair to say that everybody wants level 10 success, right? I've never met anyone that's like, well, I don't want to be too happy. I'll take like a level 7, or I don't want too much wealth. Like, no, there's a human drive within all of us to self-actualize, create the best life that we can in each area. One of the healthiest, happiest, most financially secure we can be. Okay, great. So we can all agree, I wanted level 10 success in my life. But if my level of success, according to Jim Rohn, was rarely going to exceed my level of personal development, that begged the question, what's my level of personal development? And I had to Google what personal development is because it's kind of a vague topic. What resonated is I went, my level of personal development isn't actually a fixed number. It's based on what are the rituals and routines that I have in my daily life that are enabling me to develop myself into a better version of who I was yesterday in terms of my financial habits and IQ and my relation in every area. And so I went, my level of personal development is like a 2 or a 3. And I believe this is the disconnect for 98% of our society is everybody wants to have a level 10 marriage and level 10 health and level 10 finances, but very few people have daily rituals and routines that are ensuring they're becoming the level 10 version of themselves that is capable of consistently creating and sustaining the levels of success they want in every area of their life. That was my epiphany. And I went, I need to go Google what the world's most successful people do for their personal development rituals and routines. And I need to create the most effective, proven personal development ritual that would enable me to quickly become the level 10 person I need to be to create that success that I want in my life. Because I was desperate. I'm like, I can't go on much longer like this. And so I ran home and I was looking for 1 or 2 practices that I could incorporate in my daily ritual. And at the end of that hour, I had 6, and I'm like, I don't have time. I can't do all of these. Which is the best? And I'm going back, reading articles. None of them are the best. It depends on who you ask. Meditation, there's an article, Fortune 500 CEOs that attribute meditation to their success. Ray Dalio, who's a billionaire, says meditation is the #1 reason for his financial. Well, I got to meditate. But then I see affirmations and visualization and exercise and journaling and all of these practices, the books that people have read, they're all contributing to their success. And I almost threw in the towel, Ajit, because I was like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And thank God the light bulb moment was, wait a minute. What if instead of picking one of these, what if I woke up tomorrow 30 minutes earlier and I did the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices that the world's most successful people have sworn by for centuries? I thought that would be the ultimate personal development ritual that would enable me to quickly become that level 10 version of myself to create the success that I wanted. And I'll wrap up this part of the story with, I was thinking, give me 6 to 12 months, I can turn my life around. In less than 2 months, I more than doubled my income at the height of the Great Recession. And if you want to, we can unpack. I was a coach, by the way, so we can unpack how I did that. But I doubled my income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically, where for 6 months I'd canceled the gym membership. I wasn't exercising at all. I committed to run a 52-mile ultra marathon, and I completed that. And my depression didn't take 6 months to go away. It started lifting on day 1 because hopelessness breeds depression. Right? And for 6 months, I was getting more hopeless by the day and by the week and by the month because things were getting worse, not better. And on my very first morning routine, wasn't even called the Miracle Morning, I went, this is it. If I start every day with this much clarity and energy and drive and the knowledge I'm gaining and applying, it's only a matter of time before I become the person that can turn my life around. And when I went to my wife after 2 months, I said, sweetheart, I signed on 2 more coaching clients today. She said, congratulations, sweetie. I said, no, you don't understand. That we've officially doubled our income since I started that morning routine 2 months ago. And she goes, that's amazing. I said, it feels like a miracle. And without skipping a beat, my wife, who I also now have realized is my muse, she goes, it's your miracle morning.
Yeah.
And that's how it was born. And then I just started sharing it with coaching clients and it worked for them. And then I wrote a book and, but that's where it all started.
It's beautiful. And it shows that how sometimes testing and research is such an important part of discovering of what philosophy may just completely change your life. And it may feel like, well, this feels overwhelming. It feels confusing. It feels like there's so much data, so much information. How do I take this all in? But sometimes taking it all in is how you really find the path to what is going to be your eventual discovery. And of course, you've been doing this work and teaching this work for years now, decades now almost. And it also, as you were sharing the story, what I found really interesting in that story is how you shared that, yes, there could be times when you can use the 5-minute rule, but when it keeps going down, you need more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you sometimes are not able to see what's the end of this hopelessness cycle. What I found useful in my life is when I feel not necessarily depressed. I don't think I've ever felt depressed per se as of now in my life, or at least I'm not being present to it. But whenever I feel hopeless, it's because I've let my mind do all the talking instead of my soul do the talking. So what happens with that is I go, oh, this is going to be like this, or this is going to be like that. And I make up these scenarios that just get worse and worse and worse, even worse than it actually is.
Yeah.
But if I let my soul talking, or if my body is allowed to talk, which happens if you say exercise, or if you move, or you run an ultra marathon, whatever that is, what happens is suddenly your mind kind of gets to shut down.
Yeah.
And when your mind shuts down, suddenly your soul starts to speak, or your body starts to speak. And their conversation is, in my personal experience, a lot more affirmative.
Yeah.
Your body doesn't quit on you most of the time. It's because it's always in a healing state in a way.
Sure.
Because even if you're going through the worst medical experience, your body's trying to heal it.
Yep.
Like, it's not actually trying to hurt itself.
Totally.
It's trying to go, what can I do to help you? Right? And so is your soul. It's always trying to heal you. It's never trying to hurt you. Whereas our mind, as powerful as it is, and it can be the greatest source of whatever we create in life, it's also, because of that power, it comes with this great counteraction that it can take against our best outcome.
Yeah.
And that's where I think I go into a downward spiral. That's where I go into the state of hopelessness. And I have to remind myself that let the soul or the body take charge, and suddenly your mind will also come back to that state.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about 6 key things in the morning, Miracle Morning. You talked about, of course, there were many things that you suggested during the course, but there's 6 very specific things that you found out of that research that you did and that you've been practicing. And like you shared, you were doing with your coaching clients, and you still teach, and you teach and talk about it all the time on stage. What are those 6 principles?
So they're organized in an acronym, which helps people remember them. And again, my wife, this was her idea, my muse, my wife, Ursula. They're known as the Savers, or I'll call them the Lifesavers. In the book, I call them the Lifesavers, but the acronym is SAVERS. The first S is for silence, A for affirmations, V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading, and the final S is for scribing, which was initially journaling, but the J didn't fit the, Savers, didn't fit the acronym. So scribing. And so what that looks like is, if you look, these are 6. Now, so silence, that's meditation, it's prayer, it's breath work, affirmations, visualization. These are 6 of the most timeless, proven practices to optimize the human organism, right? To optimize our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Back before smartphones existed, silence was baked into our day. And if you look at when do we access wisdom, right? From higher consciousness, from God, from our own subconscious, right? It's in moments of peaceful, purposeful silence. And those used to be when we're waiting in line, when we're sitting on a bus, right? Now, our smartphone has pretty much robbed us of those moments. And so the idea is that you start your miracle morning begins with a period of peaceful silence. And it can be as little as 1 minute or 10 minutes or whatever works for you. But for me, it usually starts with a prayer of gratitude and thanking God, and sometimes asking for guidance. If I'm at a challenging time in my life and need a little guidance, which is more often than not, I need some guidance. And then it's meditating, and there's various forms of meditation. In the new edition of the Miracle Morning, I teach something that it's a method I created, I think. I don't know, whenever I think I created something, and then eventually I'll stumble upon, someone did that in 1934. Like, dang it, I thought it was mine. It just shows there's no new ideas.
All standing on shoulders of giants.
That's right. But I call it emotional optimization meditation. And so unlike most meditation forms where, you're trying to clear your mind and just follow your breath and be in a state of pure, unaffected consciousness, right? Emotional optimization meditation is where you actually ask yourself, what is the optimal mental or emotional state for me to be in today, right? Or at this time in my life. So it might be like, because I got a presentation in an hour and I got to get myself in a state of confidence or I got a big day, I got to focus, right? Or I fought with my spouse last night and we went to bed angry and I need to be in a state of love and empathy and forgiveness, right? Or it's Saturday morning and I'm playing with my kids in an hour. I got to get in like dad mode, right? So the state you need to be in might be different. Now for me, my default state is just a state of bliss. Like I just want to be in a state of where I'm completely at peace with what I can't change. And I'm just grateful and joyful for this breath, this life, this moment, this day. That's my default state. So emotional optimization meditation is where you identify the state and then you get yourself in that state. And in the book, I walk you through different, you can use memories, there's various ways to get into the state. You get in the state, and then you set your timer for a minute or 5 or 10 or whatever it is. And then you meditate. And I like to use the word marinate because it gives a different feel of like, you're sitting in that state. What you're doing is, you're trying to go deeper into that state. And sometimes I'll use thoughts, images, whatever I need to deepen that state. But the reason is that you are now hardwiring that state in your nervous system and in your subconscious so that you can access it at will and it becomes more of your default state of being. So I've found through experience, I can literally get myself and condition any state. I can become more confident. I can become more patient. I can become more loving, more empathetic, you name it. So anyway, that's an example of a form of meditation, silence. And I'm happy to go through any or all the savers and we can, teach on each one, wherever you want to go with this.
Let's go to each one of them. So,
okay.
So silence first. And I think what's curious of what you just said, it's almost like you're anchoring for that day. It's like today's day is going to be like that, right? So it's almost setting an awareness and expectation of the emotional state based on the meditation technique that you use, it feels like that's what you're doing, and that's what is a really powerful way of living your day.
Yeah.
One of the things that I share with our students and our listeners is one of the practices that I do. It's not exactly like what you said, but it's almost every day set with an intention in a way of saying, okay, this is what the day is going to unfold as. And then I find myself reminding myself through the entire day, because what I find is, while morning routine is very important, I have one, and a lot of the elements that you talk about are a part of those. What I find is through the day, I find that you may start with a really full cell because you do a great morning routine. Let's say you're fired up, you're ready, but let's say something happens in the day and that throws you off. I like to look at my day as a battery.
Yeah.
It's like I have to fuel my battery in the morning, so I'm ready for it.
There you go.
Great sleep helps, and then you do a morning routine, amazing. Now you're ready.
Yeah.
But let's say 2 hours of intense, let's say being on podcasts or doing something, you're giving, it's high value stuff, but you may go, whew, need a breather.
Yeah.
All right. It's the battery's a little bit out. It's like almost like a phone has been used a lot. You need to plug it back in.
Yeah.
So around somewhere in the middle of the day, I bake in some time with me and my wife to be able to come together, hug, and, like really talk about some fun stuff. Batteries back on. And then 2-3 hours later, I find myself fueled up when I go to the gym. So my exercise comes later in the day. So I go, all right, now let's go to the gym or for a long walk, which is a way to practice the silence that you talk about, that fuels my battery back up. So by the time I meet my kids, it's almost like it was morning, because I am fueled up by the time the kids, I'm meeting them at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It's like, oh, they're like, Dad is exactly like he was at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning.
Nice.
He's exactly like that at 4 in the afternoon, and until you go to bed. So it's almost like it gives you that awareness. The emotional meditation that you're talking about is like, all right, what's the emotional state we want to be in? And it anchors so you can remind yourself of through the day, so you can be in that state.
Yeah.
What I also found is the silence thing that you're talking about, even without the meditation, is so powerful. There's this experience, I don't know if you know about it. There's a friend of mine. He wrote this book called The 12-Hour Walk. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So he's this guy who has like 10 world records on his name. He's the first guy to cross Antarctica unassisted without any help on foot.
Wow.
Like literally he walked through that over 55 days, I think.
Wow.
So he's this crazy dude who does these crazy experiences of life and
What's his
adventures of
name?
life. His name is Colin O'Brady. And he's a very social person. If you'll meet him, you would not think he's the guy who does solitude of any type.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's this guy who, as he was crossing Antarctica, he realized that his oneness with universe, let's call it that, or oneness with God, however you want to call it, like his experience of how we are all together as humanity happened when he was in Antarctica just with himself and his thoughts. He missed his greatest foe and the greatest ally at the same time. So he came up with this idea of, what if during COVID, he's a guy who's an outdoors guy, clearly, right? He's doing these Guinness World Records, doing these physical challenges, and he's stuck in COVID. So his mind has taken over now. He's like going all crazy about his life right now, right? So one day he says to his then wife, hey, I'm just going to go for a walk. I just need to go out for a walk. And he goes out for a walk and does not come back till like 8 p.m. or something like that. So he goes on walks for 12 hours.
Wow.
And when he comes back, his wife looks at him and she says, you're back. Realize how our wives are our muses all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how they know us so well. So she goes, you're back? And he's like, yeah, I'm back. He was like, no, you're back. And then he realizes that solitude of 12 hours of him just being with himself, because he turned off his phone, he turned off all messages, no noise, no talking to people, no Instagram, nothing. Just him and his thoughts. Those 12 hours literally rewired him.
Wow.
To know what's important, what's not important to him, right? So that silence piece that you're talking about can be stretched to the extreme of saying, you can walk. And so I did the 12-hour walk. That's where I was going to. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great experience. You should try it. It's actually wonderful. And you just take 12 hours, you take a journal, you turn off your phone airplane mode. You might want to keep it still just in case, because you end up with, end up in like some long hike and, if you need support.
Yeah.
But you basically pack in some protein bars and some water and you just go for it,
That's
right?
wild. Yeah.
So yeah, it's wild. It's amazing though, because you get to spend those time with yourself and you get to ask the most important questions that otherwise you would never really get the time to think about because there's so much data at all times.
Yeah.
But it leans into the first S of savers, is silence.
Yeah.
What if you could practice it every day? You don't need the 12-hour walk then probably, because every day you're practicing 10 minutes, me with my thoughts, right? Me with setting myself emotionally right.
Yeah.
Me with getting my mind organized by getting it to go. Don't take input, just go inside, find the answer within.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Let's go to A, which is actually one of my favorite things,
Mine
which
too.
is affirmations.
Yeah. I think affirmations are the most mistaught, misunderstood form of personal development, if you will. And I think the two problems with the way affirmations have been taught, and a lot of people hear affirmations, they roll their eyes, you know, kind of like, oh, it's cheesy affirmations, I'm amazing. I think the two biggest problems are, number one, we're taught to affirm something that isn't actually true, that we wish were true. And it creates an internal conflict. So for example, let's say you're struggling financially. You might have been taught by a well-meaning self-help guru, just affirm, I am wealthy. I am wealthy, and affirm it over and over. I am wealthy, right? Let me hear you affirm it. I am wealthy, right? I am wealthy. But if your bank account balance is negative and you have no wealth in the bank, right? You're like, right? I mean, you know, now you're having to play mind tricks. Well, I'm wealthy spiritually, right? Like, but you know what I mean? You're affirming something that isn't actually true for you, and the truth will always prevail. So now there's an internal conflict. You're going, I am wealthy, and your subconscious is going, you just checked your bank account balance. You're not wealthy. And you're going, shut up, I'm doing my affirmations. So that's first problem. Second problem is we're taught to use this flowery passive language that is like, it's like taking a drug. It gives us a short-term relief of our fear, our pain, our emotional turmoil. For example, let's say we'll stick with that same line of thinking of financially challenged, and you go, oh man, my bank account balance is not where it needs to be. Okay, I need to do my affirmations. I am a money magnet. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. And that affirmation has stood the test of time. And I think the reason is because, again, it's like a drug. You're like, God, that feels better. To think that I'm a money magnet and money is going to effortlessly, underline the word effortlessly, because I'm not motivated right now and I don't have the, I don't know
I can't put in the effort right now.
Yeah, I can't put the effort in. So I need to know that effortlessly that money's going to flow into my life, right? And I've never met a wealthy person, I don't doubt you have, that's like, oh, how'd you make your fortune? Well, I just became a money magnet on my couch, and then money flowed effortlessly into my bank account. It was amazing how, no, it's not how it works. So the way that I practice affirmations, and I teach them in the book, 3 steps. And I gave one earlier with cancer. I'm committed to beating cancer. Number 1 is affirming what you're committed to. Because in life, we don't get what we want. We get what we are fully committed to. And here's the thing. If someone's not in a great state, or just in a neutral state, it's hard to go from 0 to committed like that, right? So, if you want to lose 20 pounds, you're like, and I were to say, all right, write down an affirmation. I'm committed to, to losing 20 pounds before summer, by the end of this year, no matter what, there's no other option. You might be like, that's not true for me. I'm not committed yet, right? But I said this earlier, what you affirm repeatedly becomes your reality. So when you affirm every single day that you are committed to blank, and the blank could be an outcome, losing 20 pounds, or it could be a habit, an effort, a behavior. I'm committed to exercising 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, right? Either way, you're going to move in the direction of whatever your ideal outcome is. So when you affirm every day, I am committed to this, I am committed to this, you acclimate to that commitment. You become committed gradually over time. But the other 2 steps of the affirmation are a huge part of this. Step 2 is affirm why it's a must for you. So once you've affirmed what you're committed to, either the outcome or the activity, why is it a must for you? Why are you doing this? Because if you're not clear on, Simon Sinek became famous, letting us know your why is what drives you. It's one of, if not the most important thing. So for me, I usually have bullet points on the whys, and they're in the form of benefits, right? Reasons, benefits. And I'm usually looking at not only how they benefit me, but I'm looking at who benefits from this, right? So I'll give you continue the example of the cancer affirmations. I'm committed to being cancer, no matter what, living to be 100 with Ursula and the kids. There's no other option. Step 2, why is it a must for you? Well, I'm committed to beating cancer for Ursula because I promised her forever and today. I had 5 reasons. I'm committed to beating cancer for my mom and dad because they already lost a child and they don't deserve to lose another one. I'm not going to put them through that. Number 3, I'm committed to beating cancer for my kids, Sophia and Halston, because they need their daddy's love, guidance, and leadership, and I want to watch them grow up and be here to be their, a grandpa for their kids. Number 4, I'm committed to beating cancer for myself because damn it, and I had the word damn it in there, like a little wake up for me. Hey, damn it, I deserve to live a long, happy, healthy life, right? I needed to like make it about me too, not just about other people. And then step 5 or reason number 5, I'm committed to beating cancer for the millions of people who are themselves battling cancer or some other disease and may not have been blessed with the knowledge and resources that I have. And it's my responsibility to heal myself so that I can help them on their healing journey. So those 5 reasons were so important and so meaningful and so compelling that when I was so sick, I didn't want to do it anymore. I was ready to, there were times where I was ready to die. And if I didn't have those reasons, I would be like, I'm done. I can't, I was in such a bad physical state. I'm like, I can't do it anymore, but I would read the affirmations every single day. And I was like, oh, I have to do it. I am going to do it. I am committed to doing it no matter what. There is no other option. And that's a really important part, by the way. If you're actually someone watching this or listening, is writing it down. I'm committed to blank. This is step 1 of the affirmation formula. No matter what, there is no other option. The no matter what, there is no other option I added later because I would read it and then I'd go, I'm committed to beating cancer and living to be 100. And it kind of fell flat. I was like, but it almost left a question in my mind. I would almost read it and immediately question, am I really though? Like, I don't feel good. And I don't
the commitment wasn't strong enough.
Yeah. And it's like, and then I had to write, no matter what, there is no other option. And that was like there wasn't room for questioning the commitment at the end. It was like, no, there's no other option. I'm committed. So step 3 is affirming which specific actions you will take and when. And that's where the rubber meets the road, as my coach used to say, right? It's like, if all you do is affirm what you're committed to and why, that leaves a lot of wiggle room. It's like, well, you can literally delude yourself into thinking, yep, I'm committed. I know that I'm committed and I know why. But if you're not crystal clear on what you're going to do that will ensure that that commitment becomes a reality, and when you're going to do those things, there's a very good chance that you'll delude yourself into thinking that the first 2 steps are enough, and then you don't do the things, and then you look back almost like I'm a money magnet. Yeah. 6 months later, you look back, you're like, damn it, why didn't I get there? Because I didn't clarify the action. Yeah. And so, for me, I had like 2 lists. I had here, I'm going to do chemotherapy because I was told by some of the best holistic oncologists in the country that was actually my only option, that my cancer was shutting down my organs. I had 1 to 3 weeks to live if I didn't start chemotherapy. And the 2 of the best holistic doctors in the country would not take me on. They're like, there's nothing we can do holistically because those things take time. The chemo needs to, to get the cancer under control. So I did that, but it was like every 5, I'm a holistic, natural person. I'm like, I'm poisoning my body. So in my affirmations, I said, I will relentlessly research. And I had friends that were helping me because I was sick a lot. My dad was helping me. I was grateful to have support. But I said, I will relentlessly research every holistic practice known to humanity, and I will implement all of them. And so for me, I took 70 supplements a day. I juiced organic vegetables. I improved my diet. I exercised. I did my miracle morning every day to optimize my mental, emotional, spiritual, physical well-being. I did coffee enemas 3 days a week, which, man, when you're doing a coffee enema, you're like, this is not comfortable. And if I'm doing this, dang it, I deserve to beat cancer, So, but I really believe, the last thing I'll say is that those affirmations saved my life. Like, if it wasn't for those affirmations, I think I would have given up. I think I would have given in like a lot. And I think that's why a lot of cancer patients, and especially with this cancer that I had, the 20 to 30% survival rate, it's like they hit you with 700 hours of chemo in 7 months. It's the most horrific, intense chemotherapy regimen, and you just want to die. You just want to die. And these affirmations, I think, saved my life.
Wonderful. And I love that because it's a very different take on affirmations. Affirmations usually are generalized to statements that you repeat to yourself, right? It doesn't come with a strong why. I see why it would work, right? Because suddenly you're like, when on a daily basis you're repeating the same affirmation, after a few days you're like, what am I doing, right? You would have that dissonance. Versus if you have to repeat the why every time you say the affirmation, you're like, oh no, I know why I said this. And then what do I need to do today to actually be able to fulfill my why, to fulfill the actual affirmation. So I see the power of breaking it down so beautifully in sub dimensions, if I may, because they're not necessarily steps, but like saying, don't just generally say I'm a money magnet. Even if that is something that you want to attract money, say in your life, make it a little bit more specific, make it really committed, really write down why money is important to you. What are the reasons why you're doing it? Some of these reasons will be personal, and some of them will be because you care about people. And so you must. And then follow it up even more strongly by saying, what are you going to go do today about it or every day about it? And so you will really know, even if you feel like, okay, how am I a money magnet today? Well, you know how, because you have some action steps to become that money magnet, because it's just not going to magically appear in your face. It's not secret. It doesn't work that way. It is more detailed than that. So I have a nuanced question because I'm curious about it. So during cancer, of course, clearly that was your number one priority. But let's talk about a day-to-day life of a person. The drivers are sometimes not as prominent, as strong, or at least that's what I have experienced, is not that strong, like I have to beat cancer for my family. That's real shit. Like this is where, you
life
know,
or death,
is the biggest test of the affirmations principle. And it is also not a everyday event for every person. Like it's not a case for me right now, for example, right? How many affirmations do you have? Do you prioritize, hey, you know what, let's find 2 items, 3 items that are really important to me in my life? Because it's not just, I'm a money magnet, right? It's like, why is it important? How am I going to make it happen? Or do you say, no, you could have 20 of these?
So essentially, I say that I create an affirmation for each of my goals and each of my roles. Right. So as a dad, I'm committed to blank. No matter what, there is no other option. And that's usually a pretty generalized statement. It is, I'm committed to being the dad my kids deserve, right? Something like that. Why? And then I got the whys. Where really the rubber meets the road is in step 3, which is like, what am I going to do? And one thing I do is, you know, part of the savers is which we'll get to, is reading, right? I have a self-imposed rule that I'm not allowed to read a business book until I've read a book on family. So I have to read a parenting book or a marriage book before I read a book that I'm really excited to read in some other genre of my life. And so that's an example of, because that happens every single day as I'm affirming it and I've committed to it, I'm becoming a better dad. It's pretty hard to read books on being a better dad and not pick something up and, you know, and make some changes. And same thing with being a better husband. So that's one example. And then as far as goals, so in each area of your life, right? So if you look at the wheel of life, and you go, okay, the 8, 12, 10, 12, whatever. We'll say 10. We'll meet in the middle, right? 10. You know, so you got your finances and your health and your fitness and your relationships and so on and so forth. You should have an affirmation for each of those areas, right? And so an example of like a more tangible, not life and death where it's cancer. In fact, I'll use a real life example for me when I first started the Miracle Morning. That's very easy not to do. I hated running my entire life. I've never been a runner. And I had 2 friends that ran ultra marathons. And one of them was raising money for charity. He said, hey, you want to run this race with me? I said, dude, I've never run a mile outside of PE class and I hated every minute of it. No. And then I started doing the Miracle Morning. And when I started doing the Miracle Morning, going back to Jim Rohn saying your level of success in each area on a scale of 1 to 10 will not exceed your level of personal development. I started setting what I called level 10 goals, right? I'm sure lots of people have probably done that, right? But it was like, this year, maybe not for the rest of my life, but this year, what would a level 10 goal be for me? Meaning, what would be something that would, if I hit it, it's going to challenge me, it's going to stretch me, but if I hit it, it would be amazing, right? And even if I get close to it, it's going to be great, right? So if I hit it, great. If I don't, okay. As long as I'm giving it everything I have to get there, right? So when I got to fitness, I thought, well, man, my 2 buddies ran ultra marathons. Would that be a level 10 for me? And here's where I went. Who would I have to become mentally, emotionally, physically? Like what kind of mindset? Who would I have to become to run 52 consecutive miles? And I went from that being very scary. Actually, it never stopped being very scary. But I went, I have no idea. I want to try. I want to try to become the person that I would need to be, because I've never been that guy that could run 52 miles. So I committed. And then I committed immediately before I taught myself out of it. I committed publicly that I'm raising money for this charity. I'm running 52 miles on October 29th, 2009. And so the affirmations immediately became my anchor. 3 steps, right? Step 1, I am committed to running 52 miles on October 29th, 2009. No matter what, there is no other option. blank. Step 2, and by the way, this reason I'm about to share is universal, I believe, for every human being on the planet. If you are looking for a why to do anything, here it is. I'm committed to doing this, to running this ultra marathon, so that I can develop the abilities and the qualities that I need, to become the person that I need to be to create everything else I want for my life. Because I thought if I could overcome the limiting belief that says I can't run a mile and somehow run 52, I just thought if I can do this. So that my why was this universal. I'm doing this. I'm pursuing this seemingly impossible goal to become the person that I need to be to create everything else I want for my life. And then step 3, it was real simple. I will read this book, The Non-Runner's Marathon Trainer. I picked up this book for people that hate running to train for a marathon, and I will implement the training plan and follow through with every step of the way. And, you know, if it wasn't for that affirmation, it would have been like so many of us that set a goal. We're like, because we're not recommitting. You got to recommit to your goals every single day.
Yeah, that is so true. And while I really appreciate that you could go for every role in your life, what I find useful for me is to commit to something, a few of those items every time.
Top 3.
Yeah, top
agree.
3,
Yep.
and then I focus it on it. And because what I've also found is once I commit, about anywhere between 30 to 90 days, I become a person that, at least that's for my personal experience, is I go, if let's say, for example, when 3 years ago, if you would meet me, I was very, very unhealthy. I had never visited the gym. I would never go to the gym. I would eat the shittiest of the foods.
Okay.
And not because of any other reason, but it just never took priority in my life. And then because my daughter was born, and there's a whole story to it, but basically I realized that I am not the person I want to be, and not the way I want to be a father, or a representation of what a father is, and not the energy levels that I want with my kids around me, and for myself as a person. And so I asked myself a different question. I said, okay, I'm going to commit to these 90 days of me just focusing 100% on my health. And the reason why it was 90 days to start with is I almost know that after that I turn. There's something that switches in me as a person where I don't have to remind myself anymore, because just who I am then. So for me, that it's become more rhythmic to finding 2 or 3 items that I can focus on. And those are the changes, those are the areas I'm changing in my life almost in a way, versus all of the areas, because it seemed to overwhelm me when I would do like, I'm going to do this. I would do that maybe at the end of the year. We do that. Actually, me and my wife, we sit together, we look at all areas of our life, and we make our personal goals and then our together goals. So we align as a relationship as well, to say, hey, what are the things that we match? What are the things that we want to do together? What are the things we want to commit to together? How are we committing to each other together, and so forth. But then there are certain things that are highlighted. It's like, all right, this is the 90-day sprint to this new version of me in this one area of my life, and I'll have another sprint. So maybe it's just psychologically, I wanted to present a different way also, in case people find it hard to do 6, 8, 10 commitments at a time.
Totally.
Because I know I would.
I would start with one. I would start with one. I would literally pick one area of your life, what right now is on your heart, on your mind. Maybe the area you're struggling with the most. Maybe it's the area that you know you really need to show up more. Whatever it is, pick one area. Like for me with cancer, I don't think I even read the other, like I didn't care about my financial goals. Like none of this matters if I'm not alive in a few months, right? So it was like, that was it, right? In fact, my entire Miracle Morning, I think this is worth mentioning, all 6 of the savers were focused on beating cancer, all of them. My silence, I would meditate in a state of complete healing. I would imagine my cells healed. I looked at what a healed cell versus a cancerous cell look like under a microscope. We actually looked at my blood, and so I would visualize that, and then the visualization would visualize being healed and having all of my cells look like these healthy cells. I would exercise in the morning, and actually Googled, are there certain exercise rituals that are better for cancer? I would read books on beating cancer, and then I would journal every day what I was going to do that day, what I was grateful for, what I would do to take proactive steps to heal my body. And so my entire Miracle Morning was hyper focused on that. And I think that's an interesting, or a good way to look at it is like 2008, my Miracle Morning was focused on doubling my income, right? Getting back to where I was before the economy crashed. And what do you know? It did. So what's neat is it's universally like you get to direct your savers toward, it could be all 10 areas on your wheel of life at once. Like once everything's balanced, and that's what you might aspire to. But on day one, it's like, I got to fix this area, right? I'm struggling financially, or my marriage is we're on the brink of divorce. I got to focus on that. But now you align 6 of the most timeless, proven personal development practices toward you becoming who you need to be to do the things you need to do to transform that one area of your life, or multiple areas.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Even one area is a good place to kind of get started, at least, or especially if something's really painful in life right now, or something really challenging in life. Yeah. Which brings us to visualization. Again, one of my favorite things to do every day. Tell us more about how you approach it.
That's been my most challenging of the savers. It always has been. What helped me tremendously is, I forgot what I was reading, but when visualization was reworded as mental rehearsal. Mm-hmm. And so I think that visualization, similar to affirmations, has kind of been taught to us in a way where it doesn't really move the needle. And here's what I mean, right? Like you mentioned The Secret earlier. That was just make a vision board, and then the law of attraction will go to work, and you'll never have to do anything, and all the things on your vision board will come into your life like it did for these people, right? Like, everybody made vision boards, and I think years went by, and they're like,
overly simplified.
Yeah, wait a minute. I made the vision board, and it's like, so we've been taught to visualize the end result and leave it at that. And there's merit to visualizing the end result, but to me, it's only half of the equation, if you will. When you visualize the end result, the benefit to that is if you see it clearly and you imagine how great it's going to feel to hit that goal, lose that weight, be in a happy place, whatever. That can generate feelings of it generates energy, right? I feel drawn toward that vision, right? But I think that's, again, it can fall flat because you can trick yourself into thinking, oh, that vision is going to become a reality. I see it clearly. Okay, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing, right? Well, no, you got to do things differently. And so the second part of visualization for me is visualizing or mentally rehearsing ourselves doing the thing that we need to do today that we just affirmed 5 minutes ago in our miracle morning, that will ensure that we're moving in the direction of that ultimate vision. And so as we get through the savers, you'll see how they do kind of sequence together, right? So you're silent, you're getting in that peak state. Now you're affirming your commitments that are most important, why they're a must, and what you're going to do. Now you're visualizing you achieving that commitment, generating feelings of what that's going to be like. So you have a drive, a desire. You're acclimating to what might feel like a really far out possibility that you're not sure about, but now you're seeing it and feeling it. And then you're mentally rehearsing doing the thing that you just affirmed in step 3 that you were committed to doing at the time you're going to do it. And I'll give you a real life example. Piggybacking on the ultra marathon. So again, I hated running. And when the alarm went off at 7 a.m. on my phone, which is when I committed to run, that was my training time, human nature. And in the beginning, I would fall into my human rhythm, which is, I'll do tomorrow. I'll run tomorrow, right? I can miss a day. And as we know, one missed day turns into 2, turns into 3, turns into, oh man, once again, I didn't follow through and achieve the goal. I didn't even, I didn't stick with it. But here's the beauty of it. Every morning, and this only takes a few minutes, I'd mentally rehearse crossing the finish line of the marathon. I'd spend 60 seconds, maybe most, visualizing myself and I'd close my eyes and I would smile. I'd go, oh, how would that feel? I'd ask myself, how will that feel to have just run 52 miles? And wow. And so I'd get myself in that state and I'd get excited to want to do that. But that was only 60 seconds. It was the least important part, in my opinion, of my visualization. The next part is I would keep my eyes closed and I'd visualize, and I would literally see and hear in my mind the alarm on my phone beeping at 7 a.m. And I would visualize myself reaching out, picking up the phone, turning it off, setting it down, walking into my bedroom closet, getting dressed in my running clothes, and I have my eyes closed. I saw this. I did this for 6 months. I can see it just like it was yesterday. Then I would get dressed in my running clothes. I'd see myself walking back through my living room. And then almost like those shooter games where you like see your hand reach out and turn the knob, right? I would see that in my visualization, open the door. Then I would see my driveway and the sidewalk. And then I would repeat my affirmations one more time. I'm committed to running 52 miles on October 29, 2009. I'd go through the list of the reasons why, and I would go through what I was going to do to get there. And I would do it with a smile, and I would get myself in a peak state, to be excited as I looked at that sidewalk in my vision. And then I would see myself go for that run and I'd feel it. And here's the power in that you can apply, by the way, if you're listening or watching this, to anything in your life that you need to do, that you resist doing, that you hate doing, that you put off doing. So I'd mentally rehearse doing the thing that I didn't want to do, which was running. And here's the power in how that played out in real time. My alarm on my phone would go off at 7 a.m. Human nature would have been to snooze, wait till tomorrow, put off a day, but that's not what I mentally rehearsed. That's not what I reprogrammed my nervous system to experience. And so when the alarm went up at 7 a.m., it was almost like I was a robot in the best sense of the word. Usually that's not a good analogy for a human, right? Yeah. Like you want to be like a robot. But I was like a robot where I turned my phone off. I walked into my bedroom closet. I got dressed in my running without even thinking about it. Like it was just this. I wired this in my brain, automatic, went out the front door. And here's the cool part. Whenever I would open the door and see the sidewalk, it would trigger my affirmations. I would say them one more time in real time. Then I would be excited and go for that run. And similar to affirmations saved my life. So affirmations enabled me to run that ultra marathon and I'm not people hear that, they go, oh, you're an ultra marathon runner. I go, no. I'm a guy who was not even a 1 mile runner that proved that any human being could go from there to, and it was utilizing the savers and sequencing them together, in particular the affirmations, the visualization, that got me to train for 6 months so that I could actually complete that.
That's wonderful. And it reminds me of so many different techniques that I've learned in many different programs that I've studied or helped develop and so forth. So there's this, do you know Silva method? Have you ever heard about the Silva method?
Well, I read it years ago.
Yeah, the Silva method is this phenomenal method. It's a meditation method, you can call it a self-hypnosis method. It uses many technologies, let's just say it that way. And one of the technologies that it uses is called, I don't know if it's called technology, but it's basically, I want to call it a mental movie model or mental image model, one of those two. But basically what's happening in that is you are visualizing, but you're not visualizing as the end. You're visualizing it as a story. You're visualizing as a movie, probably a better term, not a story. And you're then also leaning into the feelings, the emotions, the experience. How would it smell? How would it taste? How would it be like? And play it like a movie at its happening. And what it does for you is makes the visualization not limited to just this goal that is like ding, right? Because usually that's the challenge with visualization. All right, Jim Carrey has a $10 million check in his pocket, and that's how you get $10 million. Probably not. It was probably a lot more than that. It's the easy, fun story to tell is that one image that you can capture, and because you can just hold on to it and say, that is how we do it. Yeah. That may be a part of the equation, and I'm not denying the possibility of it being powerful, but the real power, I believe, lies in feeling it. The real power lies in experiencing how it is actually going to unfold. One of the ways that I found myself also utilizing visualization in the mornings, yes, I absolutely do so, and also right before I go to sleep. I feel that especially my bigger visions, if I fall asleep to them, it's almost like my dream state is a continuation of everything that I'm visualizing. So when I wake up, I'm already preset to a state of wanting to even go further in that direction. So I found sleeping to your visualization, because we'll anyways think something, and usually there's something, whatever happened in our day while we are going to sleep, right? Unless you're one of those superpower people who just fall asleep like my kids. They could be jumping 1 second ago and then they're just like, what? How did you get to sleep state in like 3 seconds from jumping on the bed? Like that's a great energy shift. They're able to do it. I'm not. So what I found is instead of letting my thoughts run over in my head in the night, thinking about what happened in my day and who did what and who did not do what or whatever, or trying to make a task list go tomorrow, worse even, because that wakes me up instead of putting me to sleep, I say, hey, what were the dreams that I'm like, what's the thing that I'm working on right now? And I found that actually kind of speeds up the manifestation a little bit, speeds us the realization of that visualization a little bit. A thing that I noticed that I think you're doing unconsciously is you're hypnotizing yourself. I think you're using some of the subtle self-hypnosis techniques without realizing that's what you're doing actually by repeating these things and kind of like, how you said you open the thing, and these are kind of hypnosis techniques of making that vivid image so clear that it becomes as if you've already lived it, or
Yeah.
as if it has already happened. So it's really powerful, the subtleties that you have baked into, consciously or unconsciously, into the Miracle Morning, that actually is very apt to how our brain really processes information and makes it real for us, or helps us be able to realize it on a day-to-day basis. Now, we're only through SAV of
Yeah.
savers. So let's go to the O.
I'll go through the last three. We can go through a lot quicker. So ERS, exercise, reading, and scribing. So exercise, you don't need to go to the gym in the morning. It's literally about getting your heart rate up, right? Getting the blood and oxygen flowing throughout your body, waking up your nervous system. And Robin Sharma was in the Miracle Morning documentary. We made a movie about the whole movement. And he said that in the documentary, in his scene, he says, that science has proven that the benefits of exercise, and not just physical benefits, but mental, emotional, spiritual, last as long as 13 hours after the initial exercise. And so in the morning, moving your body, it could be as little as 60 seconds of jumping jacks. And what that does for the brain fog that you have when you wake up sometimes, right? The lack of mental clarity, you'll go from a 2 to a 7 or an 8, in 60 seconds. So that's what I mean. You don't have to go to the gym. You can do a 7-minute workout. You can do, the Miracle Morning app has these little workouts you can do, right? But it's not about a big full-blown exercise routine. It could be going for a little 2-minute meditation walk, whatever. So that's the exercise piece. The reading piece, again, not rocket science here, but it's about, we're all one book away from any, and if you listen to this podcast and you're a coach, you're reading all the time. So this is, I'm not teaching anything new. If there's anything new, it'd be maybe if you have a family, read that family book like I do before you get to the coaching book or the business book or the finance book. And then the final S is scribing, which is a fancy word for writing or journaling. And what I do is I used to write down there were two things that I primarily wrote down. Number one, what am I grateful for? I have my hand on my heart and I really feel. So each time I write something down, I'm grateful for my wife, right? I usually try to put a because. What about her am I grateful for today? What's one thing I can write down? The more specific you are, the more it tends to trigger that gratitude. And then my hand goes on my heart and I close my eyes for 30 to 60 seconds and I smile and I picture her and I feel that gratitude. I call it the difference between heartfelt and intellectual gratitude. Right? I mean, intellectual gratitude is like, if I were to ask you, you'd check the box, what are you grateful for? My home and my food and right? Like, but you're not actually letting that seep into your soul, versus that heartfelt, soulful gratitude is where you just close your eyes and you feel it as deeply as you can. And then the second thing is I'll look at my to-do list for the day and I'll ask, is there anything on here? I look at my to-do list for the day, which is usually there's 13 things I could get done. Mm-hmm. And I ask, what's the number one thing that is the most important, that moves the needle, that I'm going to commit to first before I get to the rest? And I just make sure that is committed to do first. And then I look at number 2 and then number 3. Now, real quick, I did add one other question on the front end of those two in the new edition, the updated edition of the book, which is I actually ask myself, do I have any inner turmoil that I need to let go of or that I need to process? That's the first question.
I love that.
Because if you wake up and you've got inner turmoil, you're, I'm frustrated, I'm scared, I'm stressed, but you go straight to what am I grateful for, right? You're not processing this underlying trauma or inner turmoil that you need to. And so for me now, that's number one, is I write down, and the power of writing what's in your, that's causing you stress or anxiety, writing it down creates a real feeling of separation of, oh, it's not in the back of my neck anymore. It's not in my subconscious, overwriting it, like weighing on my mind. It's on that piece of paper or that journal that I wrote. I now have a separation, and I give myself permission to not worry about that all day. And it's in the journal. So if I want to go back and revisit it, stress about it, strategize on it, it's there. And so the last thing I'll say, I'll paraphrase what Robert Kiyosaki said, author Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was on Rich Dad Radio, and he had read the Miracle Morning book 3 times himself. This was years ago, the original edition. And he said something I had never thought of before, but he said, Hal, you named the book The Miracle Morning. You named it perfectly. I said, oh, why? Do tell. He said, because every successful person on the planet attributes their success to at least one of the savers, and most successful people do 2 or 3 of them. Mm-hmm. He said, but I had never met anyone, myself included, he said, that did all 6 of these ancient best practices every single day in one ritual before they even got started with their day. Mm-hmm. And he said, if any one of the savers will change your life, he said, my experience in the last 3 months since I've been practicing the miracle morning, he said, it creates miracles for you. He said, I've experienced miracles in my marriage, miracles in my health, and miracles in my business since I started doing the miracle morning and the savers. And so I thought, Robert, can I quote you? Like, that's the perfect way to frame how powerful this practice is.
It is. And I can see from my perspective as well, I have not practiced savers in the way that you mentioned, but most, like you said, I would say I practice at least 3 of the 6 in the morning. And then I definitely practice all 6 through the day.
Sure.
So they are definitely very powerful practices. It feels that the miracle morning puts you in a state of intention. And an intention to create instead of react. And most of us wake up in the morning in a reactive state because, alarm's gone off. We got to do this. So much to do. Life's so busy. And we are so in a reactive state that we never, or we get rarely a chance to kind of go, okay, what am I creating? What do I get to create today? I feel the savers allow you to really get into that state because you become intentional about each of the things. Like as you go through the savers, you go, oh, I'm actually setting myself up for a life or a day at least of creation. And we get into the state of creation. If we stay in the state of creation, we get to create our life. We get to channel the creation as well through our life. So I think that's where I see the power of Miracle Morning. And I see it working so well for anybody that is willing to practice it. And I am going to give it a spin for sure and report back on how my life has changed dramatically once I practice all 6 of them in the morning.
Awesome.
But before we wrap the day today, I like to ask these 3 questions. I want to ask this one to you, and which is, and the reason why I ask these questions to set a context is because a lot of times what happens is when somebody's listening to somebody who has done so much work in the field, has practiced such a great thing and written a book, and these are the kind of guests we get to have on the podcast, a person watching or listening goes, yeah, they can have it because, they have thought about it. They've done this. They've done 20 years of work on it or whatever the reason being. They come up with a story, a reason why it will work for Hal. So one of the questions I like to ask all my guests is, what insecurities are you battling with right now? One or many?
Yeah, great. Oh, there's many. Great question.
Or one.
No, I think that for me, and I've heard it said before that we're all teenagers in grown-up bodies, or we're all 4-year-olds in grown-up bodies, right? Meaning like our state of consciousness, right? It's like we're still that kid that went through that trauma. And so for me, I really feel like I got stuck a little bit in high school. In high school, I was insecure that I was never popular. I was never part of the in crowd. I was never cool enough to be liked by the people that everybody else liked, and so on and so forth. And I deal with that now as an author and an influencer. Now I'm like, all the other people in my space, right? I'm like, oh, I'm not part of the cool group. I'm not at their level. And there's FOMO. It's funny. It's like, just like anybody would have on like Instagram, if they saw, hey, why did all our friends get together? They didn't invite me. I'll see like a mastermind with my colleagues and people in my space. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't get invited to that. Like I'm not good enough. I'm not cool enough. And I think the imposter syndrome too, which goes, probably is related to that, that insecurity of just being like, I don't have it all together. I struggle with, with fear, with insecurity, with stress, with so on and so forth. And so, last thing I'll say on that is, in 2020, after I'd been on chemo for 3 years, something in my brain chemistry changed, and I started sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night for 6 months. And if you ever slept 2 to 4 hours a night for one night, you're a mess the next day. Within 6 months, I was hallucinating. I thought people were trying to kill me. I became suicidal. I was a different person. My wife was like, I don't know if, I love you, sweetheart, but you're not the man I married. I don't know. I mean, it was the hardest time in my life. And the reason I share that is the cognitive issues that I suffered from that lack of sleep, I'm battling with to this day. I'm still I'm not the same person I used to be. I'm trying to get my brain back online. So the insecurities that creates for me is like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't think straight. I'm not capable of leading like I used to be. I guess that's the general. I'm not the man I used to be. I don't know if I'll ever become him again. And I don't know how to show up like that anymore.
Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is something everybody believes about life or about things that they think it's true, but it's not?
that other people are better than us. Meaning we tend to create a separation. We look at someone, and this alludes to what you said, basically the context of these questions, right? Which is you see someone that's accomplished something, overcome something, or even just hear someone talk, you go, oh, they're so polished, they're so much better than me. They're smarter than me. They've done more than me. They're experienced. And it's this separation of I'm not them. I can't, like you said, they can do it. I couldn't do it. Because I look at my path, I'm a failure. I tried. I've never done anything extraordinary. I think one of the truth about that and the most important belief for all of us to adopt, and the good news is if you're listening or watching, you can adopt this right now, is that anything another human being has done is evidence of what's possible for all of us, right? And anything another person has done, like we have to embody that we are limitless. Right. And maybe, if you're 4'2", maybe you're not going to dunk a basketball. Right. I mean, I'm not, use common sense here. I'm not saying that if another person did it, you could do it within reason. But in terms of overcoming, accomplishing, creating, becoming, you name it, if another human being has done it, we can do it too. And I think that should be an affirmation. It should be, in our affirmations that we need to develop this extraordinary self-belief and self-worth. And you have to fake it till you make it in the beginning, because you've got to believe that more is possible for you than you've ever proven is possible for you. And only once you commit and you affirm it every day that I am committed to blank, no matter what, there's no other option. And that blank is something that is outside of what you've ever done before. And you acclimate to that belief, and then you do it. So anyway, in conclusion, it's that the false belief is that other people are better than you and more capable, and that you don't have what it takes. And the reality is you are more capable than you have ever imagined.
Thank you. And the last question I have is, what is the belief you like to offer to the world? If you could just install a belief in everyone, what would that be?
I mean, I think it's the one that I just said. For me, in 2008, I was lacking confidence. I was depressed. I was scared. I was in debt. And the miracle morning, it was that like you said, starting my day instead of reactive. And you mentioned the alarm goes off, you're reactive. You turn on your phone, you're literally reacting to notifications and to text messages and to email. You are in a state of reactivity most of our day. And you're reacting to other people, you're reacting to email, you're reacting to all this external stimuli. And to your point, that miracle morning is like, I have nothing to react to. In fact, I don't turn the phone, I don't turn my notifications on until my miracle morning's done. I get to just create. I get to be proactive instead of reactive. I get to be intentional. I get to give to myself so that I can show up at my best for the people that I love, the people that I lead, and for myself every single day. And so that's the belief, is that if you start your day with intention in a peak mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual state, you get to show up at your best. Not just one day, but every single day of your life.
Beautiful. Hal, what's the best way for listeners, watchers to find more about you, follow your work?
Yeah, I think miraclemorning.com is the best. It's the hub. You can watch the free Miracle Morning movie, which Vishen Lakhiani is featured in that movie. Robert Kiyosaki, Mel Robbins, Brendan Burchard, Layla Ali. I mean, a bunch of extraordinary people and their stories and their morning routines. You can download the Miracle Morning app at miraclemorning.com. You can, the books aren't free, but you can get the books there, right? So that's a great hub. And I do encourage anybody, watch the documentary. It turned out phenomenally well. It's, 4.7 out of 5 stars on Amazon Prime or whatever. People really love it. But that's a great segue into this practice and into the mindset that I believe everyone can benefit from.
Thank you so much, Hal, for taking the time.
Yeah, Ajit, thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Okay.